As we were just discussing, former Governor General David Johnston is one of the Canadians attending Queen Elizabeth's funeral Monday. I spoke to him right after party leaders paid tribute to the late monarch in the House of Commons. I started off by asking him what it was like to hear those tributes in person. Have a listen.
I think they both were remarkable, and each was different. The Prime Minister's speech was very personal, very emotional. The connection with the Queen that he had from the time he was a small boy, and some of the indications of the graciousness and her love of Canada. And Mr. Poilievre's speech was a wonderful lesson in history, going back to Magna Carta in 1225, from which our freedoms began and our constraints on power and so on, right up to the present time. And speaking about the Queen as a protector of the Constitution, as is the responsibility of the head of state, and ensuring that our liberties and our freedoms continue, and that we have a very stable form of government.
Do you think it's important for Canadians to hear from the leaders of political parties in this country inside the House of Commons, specially recalled, I should tell our audience, to make these tributes? Why do you think it's important for Canadians to hear from them?
Well, first of all, I just found that those discussions were so civil, and it's appropriate that we have civil discussions of that kind when we honor someone as remarkable and unique as Queen Elizabeth. And I think that's been a hallmark of Canada, Vashi, that we are a civil country, where civility to one another is very important. And in the head of state, we recognize the separation of powers. The government is the elected people who represent us and carry on the business of government, but the head of state function, the Queen and the Governor General representing the Queen in Canada and the Lieutenant Governors in the province, have the responsibility for protecting the Constitution, a non-elected form of government. And that separation, I think, is very important, as has been the ability of Canada over the centuries to evolve with circumstances and to continue to fashion and refashion a form of government that serves us well.
I know that's a role and an idea you're well acquainted with. I know also, though, that you have personal reflections on the Queen, and it's my understanding that you will actually be traveling to the UK for her funeral on Monday. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm very honored to be asked to do that with the group going from Canada with the Prime Minister and the Governor General, Vashi. And for me, it will be a very moving time and an opportunity, I think, to help to represent the people of Canada in paying homage to someone who is quite unique in history. I don't think we'll see her again. I expect it will be in the very best of British traditions. It's been a 10-day journey in honoring the Queen, and I think the service in Westminster Abbey will be a very moving one and a very inspirational one in terms of recognizing what she meant to all people in the countries that she served.
We listened to a number of the leaders sort of, you could say, almost separate the woman herself, the Queen, and her legacy from a discussion that is taking place, and I know one that you're very familiar with, around the monarchy itself and its role here in Canada, and the challenges that it faces, and that certain Canadians feel. Some feel ambivalent, some feel, very concerned about the role that the monarchy has played in colonialism, in the relationship with Indigenous peoples. Again, something I know that you're very familiar with. As that discussion unfolds, obviously paying tribute to the Queen as well, but as the discussion unfolds in the coming weeks, in the coming months, what do you think is important for Canadians to consider?
Well, I think the first thing is to honor this remarkable lady who was so steadfast in her service and duty. I often refer to her as epitomizing the leader as servant, a concept that is really important in our society and perhaps not as valued as much as it should be. But also her graciousness and her grace in so many ways. Not simply the steadfast duty, but a great sense of the everyday person and their life and their concerns and so on. I think that's why she was especially fond of Canada and did so many of her visits. When we speak to the institution, I often say that we're really very fortunate in Canada that we have 1,000 years of British constitutional history that has given us the government that we have, plus the other European influence that came from France when the Canada began to become a sense of nation, and the important decisions in the 1760s, where we actually continued the tradition of French civil law, of language, religion protected, and the English common law as that stream. And out of those mixtures, we have been able to make a democracy which I think is admired around the world. So as we reflect upon our current government and realize it's evolved over the centuries, never born out of revolution, born out of evolution, I think we are fortunate. I do believe that if you look around the world, many people would say that Canada has a very attractive form of government.
One final question. Your personal reflection on the Queen, if you were to sum it up succinctly for Canadians watching right now.
I'd say three things, Vashi. One, grace and graciousness, and I wish we all had more of an opportunity to come to know her as a wonderfully gracious, witty, thoughtful, practical person. Just remarkable in that respect. The second would be her steadfast commitment to duty. The leader as servant, exemplified better than anyone that I know. And the third was her faith, her faith in the common person, and her also religious faith, that there is a power greater than the self, and she served that power and drew strength from that every day of her life. It's remarkable that 2 days before she passed, she was swearing in a new Prime Minister. That's dying with your boots on.
I think those images are kind of in our minds in perpetuity. It is something to witness. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Pleasure.
A real pleasure to share some time with you, and I know you'll represent Canada and Canadians well on Monday. Thank you. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.